Good morning. I want to read you a story called The Little Red Envelopes, and it is about a man named Non Lee who was educated in Saigon, Vietnam, Paris, France, and Jacksonville. He was a high school principal when he was a young adult and a reservist officer of the Republic of Vietnam. He was born in South Vietnam in 1928, and I actually discovered that he recently died a couple years ago now in 2017 at 89 years old. But when I saw him read this book, he was 75 years old, and it was at a school, I believe an elementary school, and he was dressed in his traditional Vietnamese clothes. They were beautiful clothes. And he was reading about basically his life. In 1975, the North Communists poured into Saigon and captured Non Lee. He was a political prisoner for 13 years, and after he was released, he continued to fight against the Vietnam communists and for freedom and democracy in Vietnam. Later, he became a U.S. citizen, and his son was a volunteer in the U.S. Army and returned from Iraq with 8 military medals. President George W. Bush recognized his hard work for America. In 2005, President Bush wrote to Mr. Non T. Lee, "Thank you for your continuing commitment to our country. Grassroots leaders like you are vital to our efforts for a hopeful, optimistic agenda for America." So this was made into a book after two students, Marissa Marcel and Duane Thwanton maybe is how you say it. They were seniors at the time at Andrew Jackson High School, and this is a picture of them. They interviewed him and wrote a story. Down here is Mr. Non Lee. So from the story of his life, his growing up life, they wrote a story called The Little Red Envelopes. So I thought it would be neat to read it. Now, every so often, they use the Vietnamese words for some of the terms, and I've got a sheet that tells me how you're supposed to pronounce them. Hopefully I'll get it close to right. But it's a nice little story, and it's different, so I thought it might be nice to learn about a different culture. The Vietnamese that came to Jacksonville at that time, there were a lot of them, and they're a large group that still are here. They've made homes and had families and children and grandchildren, and they're an important part of our community. Okay, so the story goes, the special day had finally arrived, and the little red envelopes were stacked on Mr. Cam's desk. "Do you think they're empty?" I asked my friend Chen. "I can't wait to open mine, but they look so flat." See, there were little red envelopes on the desk. Mr. Cam said, "Choi Boi Song," good morning in Vietnamese. "Choi Boi Song," we all replied louder than usual. "The day is finally here," he said. "I know you have been waiting for this celebration for weeks. Today we will celebrate Tet, the Vietnamese New Year." "Hooray," we all cheered. Mr. Cam gently picked up the stack of little red envelopes and quietly walked to the back of the classroom. He carefully placed them inside a glittery dragon mask. "There is one for each of you," he said. "I will pass them out after we eat." "Hooray," we all cheered again. There's the dragon and the envelopes and the kids that are all excited about what might be in them. Mr. Cam teaches Sunday school at our Vietnamese community church. He teaches us how to read and write in Vietnamese. He teaches us about our culture. Mr. Cam grew up in Vietnam, and he has lived there a very long time. We have been getting ready to celebrate Tet for weeks. We swept the classroom to get rid of the bad luck, and then we all decorated. On that day, we brought special Vietnamese foods to class. My mom and I made my favorite rice pudding cake, Bun Tet. I think that's how you pronounce it, Bun Tet, a favorite rice pudding cake. See the cake and how they're cleaning up to get rid of all the bad luck. Mr. Cam loves Tet. Tet is many holidays rolled into one. It is a giant New Year's party that usually lasts for 3 days, he explained. In Vietnam, people don't usually celebrate their birthdays, but everyone celebrates the coming of the new year. All of the children receive little red envelopes. Money is tucked inside, and the children can spend it on whatever they want. Here he is explaining the holiday. Boom, boom, boom. Mr. Cam beat the drum, signaling that story time was about to begin. We gathered on the carpet, eager to hear a story. Today, said Mr. Cam, I will share with you the story of my last Tet celebration in Vietnam. In the year of the tiger, 1 week before the eve of the lunar year, he began. We all listened intently to make sure we heard and understood every word he said. Here he is beating the drum to get their attention. Ba Noi, grandma, Ba Noi is the Vietnamese word for grandma, called my mom and invited us to come over and prepare for the New Year celebration. I was so excited. I love getting ready for Tet. I loved the special foods. I loved the fireworks and the animal stories. Mostly, I loved the little red envelopes. Cam, Cam, Grandma said, there are only a few hours left. Take the broom and sweep the house. Sweep away all of the bad luck from this past year. We could use someone to sweep away all that we've been going through lately, couldn't we? Then Grandma called out to my brother Tran Tree, clean the windows and make them shine. So here she is telling them they need to clean everything and make it shine and get rid of all that bad luck. When we were done cleaning, Tran Tree and I carefully hung the lean red banners with words of wisdom from Confucian scholars. We placed one on each side of our ancestors' altar. We filled the vases with sunny yellow hoi mei, the chrysanthemums that only bloom that time of year. So their word for chrysanthemums is hoi mei. Then Grandma shooed us outside to go and play. She didn't want us to see what she was putting in the little red envelopes. So here is a note that's going inside that little red envelope. Every New Year, Grandma tucked a note with advice and some money in a little red envelope with our names on them. Grandma's notes always had good advice. She wanted us to grow up to be kind, respectful, honest, and well-educated. Each note began the same way. Ban Noi loves you more than you can know. This bit of advice will help you to grow and become a man who is honest and smart and thinks with his head as well as his heart. I always enjoyed reading her notes. Thinking about how to spend the money was fun too. Each year I always saved some money to buy fireworks. I loved the explosion of color in the sky. I loved the loud cracking sound. Now go and play, said Grandma. Tran Tree and I raced outside to ride the buffalo in the rice fields. Goodness, they're riding buffalo. And see the rice fields? Follow me, I said to Tran Tree as we crossed over the small river. A while later, we heard a faint drum. Boom, boom, boom. We knew it was time to go home. We climbed down from the buffalo, ran home, and bathed quickly before the Tet celebration began. We put on the new hats and the clean clothes that Grandma had ironed and laid out for us. The whole family is coming today, said Grandma, except for your father. I knew my dad was busy fighting in the Vietnam War. I hoped he was safe. There they are, getting all dressed up. A few hours later, everyone arrived with something yummy to eat. Grandma took each plate and arranged the beautiful food on the table. She then called everyone over to her long wooden table. The smell of sweet coconut milk filled the air. And there they are eating, kind of like when we have Thanksgiving and Christmas celebrations, right? Yeah. Before we ate, we gathered around the altar and welcomed back our ancestors who had passed away. This was a special time for everyone. Then we ate, sang, and shared stories. So there they are gathering around and remembering all those who had gone before them. My aunt was the best storyteller, and we all quieted down as she began to tell the story. More than a century ago in Asia began the story of the buffalo, the tiger, and intelligence. So here's the story. I'm going to read you this story right here. Buffalo, tiger. There once was a tiger that was watching as a young boy led a buffalo to labor in the rice fields. The buffalo was very obedient. The boy was small and weak. The tiger sauntered over and asked the buffalo why he obeyed the small boy. "He has intelligence," said the buffalo. The tiger turned to the boy and said, "Show me your intelligence." "I have to go and get it," said the boy. "If I leave, you will surely eat my buffalo." "I want to see it," said the tiger. "I will go and get it if you let me tie you to this tree with a rope until I get back," the boy replied. The tiger agreed. The boy tied the tiger tightly to the tree. The tiger was trapped. The boy smiled and said, "Now you can see my intelligence." He and the buffalo were safe and went back to work in the rice fields. The tiger struggled to get free, causing the rope to scar him with long stripes, and this is how the tiger got his stripes. The end. See how smart the boy was? That tiger can't get him now. There was a smile on every face when her story ended. Then Grandma told all of the children to go out of the room. The grown-ups got ready to hand out the little red envelopes. I entered the room first, bowed twice, and said, let me see if I can figure out how to say this, Mung Toi. So he said, Mung Toi, wishing a happy new year to each grown-up. So you could say that when New Year's comes again. Mung Toi. Every adult gave me a little red envelope, but only Grandma's was bulging because it was so full. We counted up all the money, and then we all took turns reading our notes of advice out loud. This year, the notes were not as cheerful as in the past. My dad was busy fighting in the war, and Grandma was afraid our family would not be able to celebrate Tet after this year. She said that South Vietnam was losing and wouldn't be a free country soon. Her advice was to save the money in the little red envelopes. So they're looking at their little red envelopes, but they're thinking maybe they should save the money because they may have to escape in the next year. When the sky grew dark, my cousins and I raced outside. I set off fireworks that lit up the sky. "Hooray!" my cousins cheered each time one exploded. We listened to the loud cracking sounds of the fireworks, and we could hear other loud cracking sounds in the distance. Grandma said those were the sounds of war. And there they are with their fireworks. "Time for bed," Grandma called out. We all came inside, and I took off my hat, changed my clothes, and lay down on the mat Grandma had prepared for me. I opened up my little red envelope from Grandma and read her note again. Just as I laid my head down to go to sleep, I heard a very loud crash. Kaboom! Grandma ran into the room and told me to hurry. We all ran down the street to our neighbor's house. Oh my goodness, something very scary is beginning to happen. They have to run in the middle of the night. A few hours later, my dad arrived and said we had a chance to leave Vietnam. He said if we don't leave tonight, I will have to go to jail. We were on a plane before dawn. My dad said we were flying to America. There's their dad, and there's the plane that's going to take them to America. I felt very sad to leave the rice fields and the buffalo, but I was glad that my dad was safe. The only things I had time to bring with me were the little red envelopes from my family. My dad smiled when he saw what I had brought. In America, he said, we will be free to have many more Tet celebrations. Boom, boom, boom. Mr. Cam beat the drums, signaling the end of the story. And so now, children, Mr. Cam said, let the celebration begin. Everyone get in line to fill your plates with our yummy Vietnamese food. Mr. Cam walked slowly to the back of the classroom and picked up the magical dragon mask. It sparkled in the sunlight. He called me over first, and I remembered to bow and say, Mung Toi, before he reached in and handed me a shiny red envelope that was no longer flat. It's bulging, just like the one your Bonoi gave you. It's bulging, just like the one your Bonoi gave you, I said, and Mr. Cam smiled, just like the one his grandma had given him. See? Boom, boom, boom with the drum and the dragon, and there's the red envelope with the bulging. It's bulging full of money. He called each child over one at a time. We anxiously opened up our little red envelopes. We dumped out the coins to count them, and we saw that Mr. Cam had placed another gift inside. There was a shiny American flag pin and a special note of advice. He said, this flag pin is to remind you of the freedom you have in America and to never take it for granted. Each note of advice began the same way. Mr. Cam loves you more than you know. This bit of advice will help you to grow and become a person who is honest and smart and thinks with your head as well as your heart. There's the note and the envelopes and the money. All great gifts. The music began to play, and we all danced and sang. We took turns wearing the dragon mask until our Tet celebration ended. We did not want it to end, but we knew that we could not celebrate Tet every year in America. Oh, look at this beautiful dragon mask. And dragon. What a celebration. We love Tet. We love the food, the music, and the stories. Mostly, we love the little red envelopes. The end. How pretty those little red envelopes are. And what a special story. It was really very special to meet him. And the kids that got to interview him, well, they're adults now, but they were very impressed with Mr. Lee and moved by his story of how he got to America and how much he appreciates the freedom he has here that he lost when he was living in Vietnam. Thank you.